Welcome to Digital Marketing for Contractors, a podcast for home improvement contractors to help you crush your lead goals and take your business to the next level. Join us each episode as we give you powerful insights and practical tips on the best digital marketing strategies to help you grow your home improvement business. Let's get started.
Welcome to Digital Marketing for Contractors. This podcast is brought to you by Fat Cat Strategies. We are a full-service marketing agency based in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we specialize in helping home improvement businesses just like yours grow their business. My name is Janet. I am the founder and managing partner, and today I've got Caitlyn Noble with me, co-owner of the business, head of client services, and a super special guest that I'm going to let Caitlyn introduce. We're super excited about today's guest. Caitlyn, tell everybody who you are, and then tell everybody who our guest is.
Yes, like Janet said, I'm Caitlyn. I am the head of client services here at Fat Cat, and I have been recently introduced to Ryanne Millis of Brix Recruiting Partners. Ryanne, we are so excited to have you on. Ryanne, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, and I'm super excited. I am the director of the home improvement division here at Brix Recruiting, and I'm also our East Coast territory manager. So we actually have a couple different divisions, our home improvement being our largest, and that's the team that I oversee.
And that is why you're absolutely on this podcast.
Yes, because those are our only listeners. Tell us what Brix does.
Yeah, so we recruit specifically for the construction industry. And as I mentioned, we do have a couple different verticals that have different specializations. So home improvement being our largest, we also have building materials and a roofing that does residential and commercial mix.
Okay.
And we recruit at the management and executive level. So that's our specialty. I would say that we do some of the individual contributor roles as well, more on the building materials side with our territory sales reps and B2B reps. But really our specialty is going to be nationwide recruiting for the home improvement industry at that management and executive level.
So not the day laborers.
No, not sales reps or installers. I know that is a huge need. We get asked that all the time. And so we do work with clients to give advice on those types of roles, because obviously like this is who we're talking to, business owners and people who hire for these all day, every day. So we're getting a lot of good advice and we know what works for them. So we're always happy to share different tactics, but it's not our specialty roles that we recruit for.
That's so niche, which I love. And I think that's something that probably makes you guys stand out from other recruiting firms, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are not a lot of firms that specialize in the home improvement industry, and especially at the level that we do it at.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I, on my team, have 9 other recruiters that are dedicated just towards home improvement.
Wow.
And we do sponsor a lot of different industry events, and usually we're the only exclusive recruiter at these events as well.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, there's just not a lot of people that have such a niche within this industry, which has really helped us because we get to know the KPIs, we know what success looks like in this role. And so, it's really a unique industry, but we love it.
That's awesome. I mean, going a little off script, we are managing our clients' websites and ads, et cetera. And most of our clients do hire constantly. They want careers listed on their websites, and we are managing those career pages. So I think it's pretty important to know that there are companies like Brix out there. Yes, you've got to have it listed on your website, but
to have an actual skilled recruiting partner to help fill those
huge
critical leadership roles.
Do you guys point people back to a website, or are you going straight? Like, I'm going to jump into it. Like, do they go straight to your point of contact? How does it work?
Yeah, so a client will reach out with a need, let's say a sales director, and they're typically coming to us when they have used traditional job boards and are just not getting the quality applicants or even the quantity of applicants that they're looking for. And usually the good talent for leadership isn't on the job boards anyway. They are at a competitor, doing well, not looking. And so it would take somebody like us to proactively reach out, tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I have this great opportunity. And whether you're missing growth opportunity, better compensation, benefits, better work-life balance, this client may be able to offer you that, and you don't even know it's out there because you're not really looking, and it would take somebody to bring that to your attention to gain your interest. And so what we do is very much like what you could call your old school headhunting. We're an outbound sales organization. We're using our network that we built over the 13 years of doing this. We're sending out messages, calling people, getting them on the phones, tapping into their networks, screening them. It's a very time-consuming process, but we're able to speed that up due to this is all we do and have done for 13 years. So we have that quick access to that
and
network.
You've got that industry expertise. So it's not like you're doing it for a software company on Monday and a law firm on Tuesday. It's all in the construction, home improvement.
You know what you're looking for.
100%. Yeah.
So I have a follow-up question. You said you do a nationwide search. I mean, this may be a dumb question, but this is why you're on the podcast. So our listeners can kind of benefit from this conversation and understand when they get to the point where they might want to hire a recruiting company. Like, let's get into the meat and potatoes of how it works. So if your search is nationwide and you've got a client in Connecticut, and you find somebody that is a candidate in Arizona, how often are you talking about a relocation package? Because in our experience with our clients, very few of their key leadership staff work remotely. They're usually there on the ground. So
that's a good question.
Yeah.
So talk about like relocation.
Great question. I would say about 40% of our placements are relocations. So we always start locally within that market to just, it's easier, you don't have as many factors to worry about. And there's a lot, that goes in with timing and the relocation piece of it. So if we can look locally and find that talent locally, that's definitely where we start. But we do a lot of relocations, and sometimes searches, people will say, for this, I specifically don't think there's somebody in my market that does this at the level that I do it at. And I would like to look outside this market. And so we can then tap into that. And we do see most people offering some sort of relocation package for this. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. I would say on average, my clients are offering anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000. So basically like a sign-on bonus just to help cover some of those moving costs so they can put it towards whatever they would like to. And then they might help them to cover some of the initial expense if they do have to relocate maybe by themselves for a month while they're finding a home, and they put them in a temporary apartment or hotel while they're looking for a permanent home. They'll help cover some of those costs as well. But yes, we usually see some sort of relocation package. It doesn't have to be anything crazy though.
In the home improvement space, what's the most common job title? Is it on the sales side or like a really skilled production manager that's going to oversee, multiple project managers and multiple crews? Is it on the operations side?
Yeah, I would say the most common is probably your sales or production manager. Those are the searches we see most often, because when you think inside a home improvement organization, the biggest verticals are sales, production, and marketing. And the marketing side of things, usually it is just one that can handle the lead generation for a larger footprint and maybe have a couple people under them to help in specific areas.
Or an agency.
Yes, exactly. And for sales though, usually a manager can only oversee about 10 before it starts to get too much for them, 10 sales reps. And then they need to start looking at adding assistants or other managers. And for the production staff, they also have crews and they can only handle so much crews. So I would say that the sales management is probably the number one, and then production is pretty close after that.
That's great.
A lot of our clients, especially when we're riding with them on that exponential growth, we tend to start working with clients when they're really starting to get success, but they're scaling, but they haven't really blown up yet. And then we usually ride on that journey with them and aid in the lead generation. And what we've seen is usually if it's an owner operated company, the owner is and in the first year or so is the salesperson.
Everything.
Yeah.
And then becomes the sales manager.
Mhm.
Over, I'll get on a call with them and they're like, yeah, my goal is to add 2 more reps this year. When you are talking to companies and trying to figure out if it's a good fit, are you usually talking to an owner that realizes I can't do this anymore and I need to hire a manager? Or do you get them after they think I can recruit for this myself too and train that person? Do you get them after they've struggled to fill the position? Or do you get them when they first realize I need to fill this position?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Some they realize I don't even know where to begin, and I'm going to start just by doing my research, and they come across a recruiting agency, or maybe they get referred to us. We do have a good chunk of our clients who are in that exact same spot, actually, and they are to the point where my organization is large enough where I need to get something off my plate because it's stunting my growth.
Right.
And we're a really good solution for that, because usually they want somebody that they don't want or don't have to do a ton of training with.
Exactly.
Just because they want someone who ideally, the whole goal is I want to get this off my plate. I don't want to have to take the time to train somebody to do this. If I can have a plug and play, someone who's been there, done that, and right away can step in and make an impact so I can have a focus on other areas of my business, obviously that's just going to really help with the growth piece and getting that off the ground.
Yeah. And recruiting, hiring, and screening
Is no joke.
We
hate.
Gosh, we have
Love our employees.
We love our employees.
But to find the right employee
and to go through that process. And I mean, we are realizing that we struggle with it. So
yeah.
Go ahead. Even us too, it's recruiting recruiters for our own team. It's definitely a time-consuming process, which and mishires are even more time-consuming and costly. So especially for your leadership positions, it's very important to get the right person in the right seat.
Amen.
Have you noticed the candidate pool changing over the years? I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. There's been a few things over the last couple of years that have made the pool change quite a bit. Obviously, COVID. We saw COVID. We had the COVID boom. The industry really benefited from that.
Yep, we saw that.
It did kind of hurt in a way too, because I think a lot of people hid behind the COVID wave, and there was a lot of just natural success from that people kind of got away with some things. And so after that wave came back down, we saw people struggling, and they then needed to look, okay, well, maybe my management team isn't as strong as I thought it was, because we were just riding this wave. So we had changes there. And then also just the economy right now in the last couple of years, post the COVID wave that we saw, and as well as just what we're in right now with tariffs and policies and consumer confidence. We're also seeing it's a very competitive market out there right now for good talent as well. So those have both caused shifts. And the last thing is probably private equity, which you've heard of with our industry in the last couple of years.
Have you been living my life?
I know.
I'm talking to a mirror.
It's
we've ridden the COVID wave. We were there
equity.
when part of it started to crash, and then we've been around and seen. I mean, honestly, it's been a success story for our clients. But just in the last 18 months, we've watched some of our favorite clients graduate onto the next level and sell into private equity. And in some cases, when we've been able to maintain that relationship, and in other cases, it just doesn't make sense, because now they're part of this bigger network. And then we become like a redundant resource that they've got that need filled somewhere else. But private equity has been a huge, pressure creator.
And it's been, great in some senses. And then other times candidates have lost jobs due to that. And then there are good candidates that maybe it's just, they don't have the space for them. So that's definitely changed the candidate pool quite a bit. And we've seen a lot of movement.
So you said that the candidate pool is more competitive. Talk to me about what you mean by the word competitive in this climate right now.
Yeah. So I think just with the economy right now and the current climate, it's more competitive for the candidates, which is probably good for the employer. There are people that are out there that are looking, and this could be due to, like I mentioned, the private equity piece,
Right.
that there's still good people out there that maybe just unfortunately had the private equity come in and there's no more space for them. There are companies that, due to the economy, have maybe had to downsize, and it wasn't due to the individual. So there are some good candidates out there, but because of that, it's more competitive for the candidates.
Right.
Whereas a
not
few
as
years
much.
ago, the employers were the ones competing for talent.
That
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and we'll probably see that shift here. I think in 2026, it's starting to stabilize and get back to normalcy a bit, but definitely in the last couple of years, it's been very competitive for candidates with all the shifts that have happened.
I totally agree. Tell me a little bit about, I mean, obviously we're here promoting you and your services. Go get a recruiting partner, use Brix.
Yeah.
But what about like the mistakes companies are making when they hire on their own? So
what have you seen?
Yeah, I think one of the most common mistakes is companies are not treating the recruiting and hiring process like they would a lead. And what I mean by that is when you get a lead, obviously you're wanting to quickly respond to that lead, qualify that lead, set the appointment. It's all about the time.
Speed to lead.
Yes. Yep. Speed to lead. And it really should be the same for recruiting as well. We should follow a similar process, and these leads are just as important. I mean, having the right people in the right seats, and especially when it's very competitive out there, very, very important to make sure that you have somebody that's dedicated to responding to that. How quickly are they responding to that? What does that response look like? What can we get in front of them in a timely manner? And how can we get them in the process as quickly as possible? So having some metrics and statistics behind your recruitment process is super important so that you can actually measure the success of that and see where maybe there are any gaps or pitfalls within your recruiting and hiring process.
That answers another one of my questions, which was, we talked about the mistakes that they're making without having a recruiting firm to help them. But then what other, so maybe you guys are in place, maybe you aren't. What should a company have when they do start the recruiting process?
Yes. Yeah. They should definitely have somebody dedicated to managing that process. And that doesn't have to be an internal recruiter. Right. It could be an office employee. I mean, anybody really. It's just making sure that somebody's held accountable to that, and that you have somebody that is responding. They know how to respond and how quickly to respond, and they can be held accountable to that process. And I would say, as well as a standard process when it comes to interviewing candidates. Yes. So how many interviews are you going to be doing? What's asked in these interviews? That should all be the same so that there's a standard to compare candidates against. I see companies having troubles when there's different people doing the interviews and they're all asking different questions. And then when they meet to try to do feedback, it's like, oh, well, I didn't ask this candidate about that. Right. And it's hard to compare if there's no standard to compare them against. And also it's hard when, okay, well, let's say somebody's out of office. Like, can someone else step in if you need to, because you need to get that process moving and be able to conduct that interview? Or is it really reliant on one person within your organization? So the more you can standardize it and keep it consistent, the easier it will be to be able to compare candidates and make sure that you're making the right decision in the end.
So on that note, do you recommend, like, obviously, the whole purpose of this is to highlight Brix and
your
encourage
services,
people that if your company's of a certain size, just work with a recruiter and take that task off your plate. But for our listeners, if you're going to do it in-house, you're the expert here. you talked about the challenges, and we've actually done this. We've made this mistake. We've had candidates apply to us. Like, I will interview one person, Caitlyn will interview somebody else. I mean, it's been a few years since we've done this, this particular mistake where I ask one set of questions, Caitlyn asks a different set of questions, a third person asks a different, and then we get together to compare, and we did exactly what you said. Like, oh, well, I didn't think to ask that. So with that mistake in mind, do you recommend that a company only have like one person do all the interviews, or is there benefit in having like two different perspectives listen to the same answer? And in that instance, are you then dedicating two people to do all of the interviews? I mean, I know I'm kind of getting in the weeds, but
no, that's a great question
of it.
I do think it's important for multiple people to speak to the individual in the process. The important thing, though, is to document and all be on the same page as to what questions are being asked, so that even if you, Janet, do the first round, you are then taking down those answers. Caitlyn knows exactly what is being asked. She's reviewing that before she goes into maybe her second round. So she knows already, you guys have discussed, it makes sense to move them on. And then she's also documenting hers so that you guys at least can come together and compare. And okay, by the time they get to me, I have all the questions that I need answered. This all checks out and it makes sense for me to have that conversation. Right. But yes, I do think that multiple people should be involved, just knowing, though, that we're documenting it and sharing that with anybody who's involved in the hiring process.
And there's some sort of standard framework if multiple people, like, we asked this question in the beginning.
Yes.
So on that note, I've obviously thought about this a lot. Here's a mistake to be made. I feel like we've made it.
Yeah. Hi, it's us.
Hello, I'm the problem. But so Brix, as all you guys do is recruit and do placement. We've talked a lot about how to conduct the interviews and how to have standard questions. Once you get somebody past that first screening, are you doing any kind of testing?
So we don't, because each client of ours is different in the tests that they want, but there are a good chunk of our clients who will test them, and we help facilitate that. So Brix as a company, we internally do. So in our process for recruiters, after the
recruiters,
yes, when we recruit our recruiters, after the second interview, we have them take a DISC assessment.
Yep.
And that's something that we then use as a tool to set up the third interview and maybe ask specific questions around things that we saw in that assessment. Our clients will often use the DISC. We have some clients, though, that prefer the CI, the PI. There's all these different assessments. And so we don't have it as part of our process, but we will facilitate it if it is part of our client's process whenever they would like, just because every client's a bit different on when they want that done and what tests they want done as well.
She has a question, but I'm good.
I know.
Sneak in with one more. Then I'm going to stop.
No, you're good.
So if you're recruiting for, let's say you've got this booming home improvement company that they're expanding like crazy. Maybe they're moving into multiple locations, multiple states. And now you've got this nationwide search and you are kind of tapping people on a shoulder who already have a job. And they're in a similar company, but a few states away. Do you find that you get a lot of resistance from those folks when you get to like the testing portion? Because they've already got a job and now you're asking them to go through a bunch of hoops for a job that they didn't even apply for.
Yeah. Usually we do recommend that the assessments come a bit later in the process because of that. So we sit down with the client and understand what makes you unique, what makes you different, why would somebody want to make a move to this opportunity? And that's what we really highlight, obviously, in our outreach to them to get them hooked and in the process. And if it is a good opportunity, truly, and it offers something that they're missing, usually there's no hesitancy then in moving forward. After they've actually met with the client, they've seen the possibility, they're excited about it. Usually these assessments don't take much time, and they're more than happy to do them because our clients too are lenient. Of course, I know you're employed, and so you have to do it after hours, and we're okay to work with your timeline. and the assessments that they give are not super time consuming. So by that time, when they've had maybe 1 or 2 interviews already and now they're excited and they're bought in, they're more motivated to do it. Yeah.
What about shifting gears? Hiring, do you help with like if there's somebody already at that company and shifting somebody from one position to another position, like that they might better be suited for?
Yeah, there's a couple ways we could do that too. Sometimes the company's okay, like they've told that employee, hey, we're going to be shifting you, we're going to backfill your position. And then sometimes it needs to be a confidential search, which we do a lot of confidential searches. Let's say they do want to move this person or potentially even replace this person because they're not working out. And they can't really post for that. It's a very sensitive thing where they don't want that person finding out. That's where we're a really good solution because
you help them get the plan B locked down before they make whatever this decision is.
Yes. Yep.
That's great. What about common gaps that you see in leadership teams? I mean, you're connecting with them all the time. They may or may not have a role identified when they start to work with you. Where are some gaps?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really depends on the company. We do work with a very wide range. So all the way from your smaller, like they don't have leadership quite yet, and we're just building their leadership team, up to the more regional, national players who are large. And so that really does depend. I will say that a gap that I've seen throughout leadership in the last couple of years has been the technology and AI piece. That's been a huge factor, as I'm sure you guys have seen in marketing with CRMs, estimating tools, design software, marketing lead gen platforms. There's a lot of new technology, and whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, production, I'm seeing that is an area that is new and might be unfamiliar to some, and some are maybe having troubles adjusting or implementing that change throughout an organization. But there's a lot of really cool tools out there that
and they all need to talk to each other. The tools do. We end up in those conversations all the time.
I'm sure.
What we've seen home improvement companies do, and really I think every industry does it. I've done this too. You get excited about something that you see at a trade show, or you get excited about the new shiny technology thing that's just come along, and you go ahead and you either sign up for a demo or maybe you pay for the first 6 months. And what we've seen owners do that, but not really have a plan for how it's going to integrate with their CRM, or how do you make sure that you insert this piece and your field sales reps know about it or know how to use it? If you're going to install something on an iPad, do they know how to use it? Are they all using it the same way? If you have updates to the presentation that you want to push out, are you centrally managing that? So on that IT piece, how common is it that you're recruiting for that? I think you're spot on that you're identifying a gap. You help owners see that they have this gap, or do they come to you and say, I need a computer person?
Typically, they have identified that previous to coming to us, but we do help them sometimes find that in our questionnaire when we sit down with them, and we want to understand the business as a whole and what challenges are you facing, what needs do you have, and maybe we help uncover that is an issue. A lot of the times, though, they will come to us and will say, yes, I see this as a problem. I want to implement this. It's not being implemented. Change is difficult to implement. And especially if that person that's supposed to be implementing it is not fully on board with it. It's pretty clear when that gap is there, and they come to us with, okay, this is something that for sure I need you to screen for in any future candidates, what their experience is with technology and implementing new technology.
That's great. A couple more questions, just out of curiosity. You got to brag on yourself. Tell me like a success story, most rewarding placement story.
Yeah. So I would say One of my largest regional clients, I began working with them probably 3 years ago. And since then, they have blown up. So they've been super exciting to watch. But when we initially started with them 3 years ago, the role that they were looking at was a CMO, a chief marketing officer.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like one of the first big marketing people that they would have had in that role for the company, and would make a huge difference for them in getting them to the growth plan that they wanted to be at. And so we helped to find that CMO and place them there, and they're super happy with it. They were there for maybe 5 months and then reached out, that CMO that we placed, saying, hey, I want to use you guys now to help me find a call center director.
Wow.
We've been crushing it. We love it here. And I want you to help me find somebody on my team now. And so then we went out, did the same exact thing, was able to find a call center director, place them there and put them in place. And then before you know it, a couple months later, that individual reached out and said, I need a call center manager.
Oh.
So it was kind of a fun thing where, you got to see all the way down the line as they grew. They reached back out to us because of that positive experience that they had, actually using us to place them there. And because of the success that they saw, they needed to find some more support and wanted us to do that for them. So it was definitely a really fun couple of years to help put some very important people in place and watch them grow.
I love that.
That is an amazing story, because it kind of shows the power
Yep.
of the right skill set and the right temperament in the right job. And I mean, we're obviously marketers, so we love that you threw us a marketing story, but it just goes to show that if the marketing is really firing, then you will need a call center manager.
Yep.
And then your call center is going to blow up, where like you're going to need more and more of that staff because you have the volume to support it. And we actually, I end up talking to a lot of owners where, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this. I do most of the sales for Fat Cat. And so I'll talk to prospective home improvement companies that are shopping for an agency. And they'll say something like, if I'm talking to somebody that's been kind of wearing all the hats and they're trying to grow, the very first thing that they want to hire are sales reps. And they'll hire a sales rep before they have the marketing in place. And so they'll say like, oh, I just hired this rep and now I need X number of leads each week. And I've always kind of struggled with like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Because if you generated all the leads and you didn't have a rep to send them on the appointments, that's another problem. Like if somebody came to you and said, I'm struggling between filling this marketing role or filling a sales role. Right. I don't know if
no, that's a great question. I would say it probably is more important to have the marketing in place, because if you do get a really good rep and you're not able to provide them with leads, they're not going to make money and they're not going to stay. And those are very high turnover, difficult positions to fill. So the marketing and having the leads for them is very, very important to keep them there and keep them happy. So I would say marketing for sure.
That's great. Well, I'll share this story real quick and then we can tell people how to connect with you. So I used to, before I've moved on to a different role, I was the point of contact with most of our home improvement clients, and I've helped them grow through the years. And to the point that I had one owner one time after a meeting stick around, and he was like, hey, I really need you, pointing to me, in-house to help manage you guys. How do I find that? And so to now know that Brix Recruiting Partners exist, I couldn't.
If we could go back in time, we would have told that owner, you need to call Brix.
Yeah, I couldn't be more happy to know about you, to tell our account managers about you, to share what y'all do, because it is so important to the story you just told.
Yes, absolutely.
It makes our jobs easier to have somebody who we're working with who is the expert in marketing as well. So, Well, great. We're so happy to have you today. I could have talked to you forever. You're amazing.
Yeah.
Tell
Very
us
enlightening.
how our listeners can find out, connect with you, learn more.
Yeah. So I am obviously on LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn. And so that's probably one of the best ways to reach me. It's just Ryanne Millis. I don't know if you want me to put out the whole link there or give a link.
We'll put it in the show notes and we'll publish it on our site. So
perfect. So yeah, LinkedIn link, but obviously phone, email is probably the best way to reach me as well. I'm our East Coast territory manager, but we do have 2 other territory managers for our Central and West Coast. So depending on where somebody is located, we want to make sure that we get them set up with the best person that will have the market mastery to be able to help them. But otherwise, I have a calendar link I can share too that will be really easy for people to just set up a call that way. And I'm always happy to, always happy to chat about whether it's, sales rep or installer need or some of those higher level needs. And when it's time to bring those people on, and always happy to share any market research that we have.
Oh, fantastic.
You are the best. Well, thank you. BrixRecruiting.com. We will list all of that in our show notes as well. Ryanne, so good to meet you. I hope we see you at a show soon. I know we're going to stay in touch.
Yes, for sure. Okay. Thank you so much for having me. And it was great to speak with you both.
You too.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you, listeners, for joining us for another episode of Digital Marketing for Contractors. As always, we hope you got value from it. And if you can give us a half an hour, our job is to give you some actionable tips, tricks, and insights to help you grow your home improvement business. So thanks again, and join us for another episode.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryanne.
Digital Marketing for Contractors is created by Fat Cat Strategies. For more information, visit fatcatstrategies.com.